Evelyn Grant stood at the entrance of St. Michael's Hospital, a decaying relic of a time long past. The once bustling medical centre now lay abandoned, its windows broken and its halls silent. A legend among her peers, Evelyn had returned to confront the demons of her past. 10 years had passed since she last set foot in this place, since her mother died mysteriously here under the care of Dr. Hale, a brilliant but deeply disturbed surgeon. Determined to bring closure, Evelyn strode inside. The air was heavy with the scent of mould and dust, and the faint creaks of the building seemed to echo with the voices of the past. She passed through the corridors, her footsteps the only sound breaking the oppressive silence. As she walked deeper, lights flickered and a cold breeze seemed to follow her, though every door and window had been long sealed. In the dim glow of the emergency lights, Evelyn reached the final ward, a place whispered about among staff but never officially acknowledged. It was here that terminal patients were taken for final treatment. Though no one knew the details, the stories suggested something far worse than death awaited those who entered. But Evelyn needed answers about what happened to her mother. As she entered the ward, the temperature dropped sharply. The shadows on the walls seemed to move, stretching and contorting into grotesque shapes. Evelyn's breath came in shallow gasps, the air heavy with a sense of foreboding. In the corner of the room, she found an old, rusted file cabinet. Flipping through the files, she came across one that made her blood run cold, her mother's name. Suddenly, a noise echoed through the empty halls, a distant moan, followed by the sound of footsteps. Evelyn spun around, her heart pounding. The hallway was empty, yet she felt watched, as if the walls themselves were closing in on her. The hospital had a pulse, alive with something dark, something ancient. In her search, she stumbled upon old film reels in a forgotten room. The flickering images revealed the horrors of Dr. Hale's experiments. Patients, dying but never truly dead, their consciousness transferred into bodies not their own. They were trapped, screaming in silence as their minds rotted within their lifeless shells. Dr. Hale's ultimate experiment had failed, and the spirits of his patients were forever bound to the hospital, unable to rest, consumed by rage. Suddenly, Evelyn heard a whisper, a voice she recognized. Her mother. She turned and saw her, but it wasn't the woman she remembered. Her mother was twisted, gaunt, her eyes hollow with suffering. "Help me!" the apparition gasped, but before Evelyn could move, the vision vanished. The hospital itself began to warp. The walls dripped with blood, the floor cracked open to reveal a black abyss beneath. She was no longer in the hospital, but in some twisted version of it, where the souls of the dead wandered aimlessly, begging for release. Time and space bent, trapping her in a loop of horror. The hospital was a prison for the dead, and Evelyn was its latest captive. In the bowels of the hospital, Evelyn finally confronted Dr. Hale, or rather, what was left of him. His body, now a decaying, monstrous figure, stood over an altar in the morgue, his hands still stained with the blood of his patients. "I can offer you eternal life," he rasped. "Join me and you'll never have to die." Evelyn's hands trembled as she struck a match. She wasn't going to join him. She wasn't going to let the hospital claim her too. As she lit the gas tanks, the spirits of the dead swarmed around her, screaming for release. The flames engulfed everything: Hale, the hospital, and Evelyn herself. In her final moments, Evelyn smiled, knowing she had freed them. But as the hospital collapsed into ashes, a faint light flickered in the distance, and a shadow moved in one of the windows. St. Michael's Hospital wasn't dead. It never would be. The curse lingered, waiting for its next victim. Subscribe for more haunting tales.